In about a 2 month period last fall of 2020, a number of frameworks announced solutions relating to images and developer experience. Now, Next.js at their fall conference announced their brand new image component. Gatsby had been teasing us with tweets, and Eleventy went ahead and announced their own solution with regards to images. We certainly had to make that call to Zach Leatherman, author and lead custodian of the CERN favorite Eleventy, to share the precise particulars of this new image component. With that, enjoy.
All right, cool. All right, so today I'm here to talk about Eleventy's image utility. If you want to check it out, the documentation is on our website, eleventy.dev. You click on this big giant Eleventy logo here to go to the docs, where we have a incredibly huge button down here that you can click. And then at the bottom on the left here is the image plugin. So yeah, I've kind of pre-prepared just a little project that just has like a package JSON with 2 different dependencies in it. And we're just kind of going to go through how I would optimize images on a project real quick. I do want to say up front that this Eleventy's image utility does not require Eleventy at all. It's not a dependency. It's just a way to generate images from a node script. So you can use it without Eleventy. You could put it in like a little serverless function if you wanted to. You can do whatever you want with it. And you don't have to necessarily buy into the Eleventy core. So what I'm going to do, I think, first is just go to Unsplash and search for an image. I like nebulas. So let's just find like a good nebula picture. How about this one? Sweet. The thing I really like about nebulas is that you can really see the differences, the minute differences between image formats when you're dealing with these images, because they're so detailed. All right, so I downloaded one. Let's just drop it in my project. And then I'll just make like a new demo file. Let's see. Let me just copy some boilerplate here. Oops. Wrong one. Get a little bit of my notes here. Here we go. All right, I think that's the same file name. All right, cool. So this is kind of it. You call this image, you require it, you get the thing back, and then you just call it on a file name. And let's just run that. Oops. Whoa. And then by default, it just sort of outputs this metadata object back to you when we're just logging that to the console here. So you can kind of see that it generates 2 different files. It generated 2 different files, a JPEG and a WebP by default. And then it gives you some sort of metadata about those images that it generated that you can use to build your HTML if you are so inclined. And so I'm going to just take you through a little bit more because that's not very interesting so far. So what you can do is customize the formats. Like I said, it comes with WebP and JPEG by default. That's sort of like the default option there. But if we would just want to simplify it a little bit to make the example easier to understand, we can just use JPEG there. One of the nice things about this is that you can use it on files or remote images too, and it will actually tell you the output file size of the image that it generates. And you can see that it's a very large image that we're dealing with, 2,300 pixels wide. You probably don't want something that big on your website. It's like half a meg. So yeah, so what we're going to do is, let's see, open this up and get like the large URL image here. I'll just paste it in here, remove some of this like extra metadata junk. We want like the biggest image we can get, and we'll just rerun it. So what this does is it goes out and downloads the image, caches it locally, and then generates the same image metadata object and output images. This one actually generates just like a slightly different file name because it's from a different source. But we can delete this image folder and just rerun it. And the nice thing about the caching plugin here is it will actually like cache that remote image for a day, like up to 1 day. So it doesn't repeat requests, network requests every time you run this script. It will use a locally cached version of this remote image. And so, yeah, you can see like the second run was quite a bit faster. So let's see, what else can we do here? I think an important thing to note here is that we don't rely on file extensions at all when we're generating these images. So we auto detect what format you want, and we can output it in a bunch of different formats. And the nice thing about using remote images is then you don't have to have any local images in your repository. You can just use images that are hosted maybe in your CMS or any other remote data source. So for example, on the Eleventy website, we have a bunch of avatars that show our different Open Collective sponsors. And what we do is we run this image utility to fetch all of these avatars from the remote Open Collective service. And then we output them locally to our project in our output folder. So we don't have to make those, when a user loads the site, it doesn't have to make any like cross-domain requests to a different service. The images act as if they're local. And we do this for our screenshots, and we have just a ton of images on our home site, our homepage. The other nice thing about the caching plugin that we use is that you can kind of work offline once the initial request is made. So you don't need to worry about sort of saving things locally if you're doing airplane-driven development, although who's traveling nowadays? Let's see what else. So the cool thing about this, we're using this in production right now on the Eleventy site and on netlify.com. So you can kind of see when you go to eleventy.dev, it lazy loads all the images, so you don't actually see any of them come back until you start scrolling. And the homepage of Eleventy actually has, I think, like almost 500 images on it, which I think is kind of weird and impressive because we still have a really, really good Lighthouse score on this site too. So yeah, you can kind of see down here on the bottom, there's 458 image requests. The site is still only 900 kilobyte. Yeah, so we're using AVIF. You can kind of see also that we're using AVIF images here on Eleventy.dev as well. And yeah, we have 4 hundos on our Lighthouse score. So 500 images and still 4 hundos, which I don't know. I think that's kind of a cool thing to shout out about. I guess less impressively, I'm using this on my personal website to generate content images on a few of my blog posts. And then probably more impressively, we use this also on netlify.com. I work for Netlify, work on the netlify.com site. So this Eleventy image plugin is also in use here. And so we have AVIF. Oh goodness, is this gonna be another GIF? Sorry, I don't know how to say it. I don't know what the acceptable way is to say it. AVIF version of images in production right now. So yeah, I think there's some really great page weight gains to be had from this new format, and we're getting a lot of performance improvement from that. I'm a real big fan. So let's see. So another thing that you can sort of do, let me go back to the code here. Another fancy thing that Eleventy image utility does is that you can make a bunch of different requests, the same image. So consider that you have like a couple of different template files that are both using the same image. So for example, say on Eleventy.dev, I use a Twitter avatar, my Twitter avatar on a bunch of different pages. I don't want to make a bunch of different requests or even generate a bunch of different images I want one image generated per URL. And Eleventy image will let you optimize that too. So I can run this and you'll see that if we make 2 requests, even in the same, even in the same file or in different files, it'll dedupe those. So the identical promise is returned here, even though we're not awaiting for the promise to finish. The same instance is returned. So if we await A here. So what's happening behind the scenes here is there's only one image processing happening and one cache request happening for both of these. It's shared resources, which I think is also kind of neat. Let's see, what else can we do? Let's go back a little bit. Another thing you can do is specify widths. So by default, this is the default option here. And I really like how Gatsby did auto. I kind of wish I had used auto, but if you pass in a falsy variable or a falsy value to this widths array, you'll get it will just use the original width of the image. But dang, I really like that auto. I might use that going forward. But anyway, you can do this with formats too, a falsy version. And it will use the original width, but you can also, let's just change it to like width 1400 to make our image a little smaller. And you can see like before it was about 500 kilobyte and after it's about 169, which is pretty good for just making it a little bit smaller dimensions. So another thing you can do here is if this metadata object that comes back is completely useless to you, you can we have like a little utility to generate some HTML from the metadata object. So I'll show that. And you can see, oh no, there's an error. So there's actually a second argument to this where you have to pass in your HTML attributes, and we fail on a empty, or excuse me, we fail on a missing alt attribute. You can use empty one if you want. Oops. So this just is really kind of neat because you're generating, you can kind of see here, you're generating a image HTML tag with the correct width and height attributes for your output image automatically without any sort of extra work. I don't know, this has saved me a bunch of time. So you can put whatever image width you want in here and it will create your images for that size and then also output the right HTML for you. So let's see what else. If you want to lazy load them, you just add the lazy attribute loading lazy. Another good one is decoding. Use this one a lot. It sort of just takes the image decoding off the main thread. And that's just a HTML attribute you can add to any image tag. So yeah, what else can we do? Let's add some more widths. If you want to do sort of more complex picture style image optimization, you can do that too. So this will generate two widths for each JPEG and generate the HTML for you using picture. Let's see, we can add more formats here. Oops. App is by far is the slowest, and that's just how it is in Sharp. But yeah, they all use the same source image that comes from that cached service. So it's actually not too slow. So yeah, you can see kind of the, I think you want that in a better order. I might improve that at some point to reorder those automatically, but let's see. Yeah, I want Aviv to come first, so that will be selected by the browser. Yeah, in the picture element. So let's see what else. I got a couple more things to go through. Oh, one of the cool things about Eleventy image is that SVG is sort of like a first class citizen. So it can take SVGs as input And it can also output SVG if you are using input SVG. There's no mechanism to convert a raster image to SVG at this point. But with SVG input, you could theoretically use this to generate like an automated open graph image, generate that in SVG, and then create raster versions of that to use on your site. And I think that would be a lot faster than Puppeteer based like screenshot methods. Let's see. One thing that we do on Eleventy.dev is that we have a bunch of screenshots, and you can use any buffer input to Eleventy image too. You can just feed it a buffer. So you can use any sort of screenshot based tool. So Puppeteer is a very obvious one for screenshots, and it returns a buffer. You can just use this page.screenshot method from Puppeteer and feed that right into Eleventy image. And that's what we do to generate our screenshots on Eleventy.dev. It's pretty small and easy. I do want to also say that Eleventy image isn't necessarily tied to HTML in any way either. I mean, we're using the generate HTML method, but you could just as easily generate, use URLs generated from Eleventy image in your CSS. So for example, let's just make a template that uses this in Eleventy. Switch this to module exports. Oops. Thing. We'll just turn. Put the HTML. So let's rename the file to index.eleventy.js. And then we can use that. What I did is I made it a Eleventy template. So just with a couple of lines of changes to code, I made this file into an Eleventy template. And so let's, oops, what happened here? Oops, goodness. All right, live coding. I want this to go into my output directory, so try this again. All right, so yeah, you can kind of see this live inside of Eleventy. And let me just switch this to be a CSS template real quick. And I'll just go through this real quick. So in Eleventy, you can output your input templates can output to any file type. So I can generate a CSS file inside of an Eleventy template. So theoretically, you could see how using this permalink, that sort of determines where my output template goes to. So I'm generating a style sheet, and you can see how I'm just generating CSS inside of this template string and using the output image URL that comes from Eleventy image inside of a background image. And on netlify.com specifically, we've used this for to generate raster images inside of embedded SVG, which is, I think, kind of neat. So let's see, I think that's all I wanted to go through. Oh, here's an example of a great blog post from Juan Fernandez. He wrote up kind of a way to generate open graph images. And I don't think it's using Eleventy image specifically, but it's just an example of how you can do that with Cloudinary, but you can modify it to use Eleventy image too. And the last thing I want to go through is this really, really great blog post from Multi-Ubel. This is not an Eleventy blog post by any means, but it's just about how to best render and load images on the web in 2021. I think it's a really great post to read through. Definitely check it out, and it will make your website faster if you use the techniques in that post. Yeah, I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions? I did want to mention one thing that's really great about the SVG being sort of like a more first-class citizen in Eleventy images. So on Netlify.com specifically, we get a lot of remote images from our CMS. And so our content creators for Netlify.com can upload whatever kind of image they want. And we'll optimize those sort of automatically. And so if they want to use SVG, if they want to use PNG, if they want to use JPEG, we sort of handle all that for them. And we also, if they use an SVG, we can have an SVG output too. It doesn't need to be a raster image. So yeah, it's just kind of an easier way to work with whatever the CMS provides to us.